Hello everybody, today I will be talking about Moodboards, like a tool designers use on a daily basis, right? For many years, I had the feeling that my Moodboards are not as good as the Moodboards of other colleagues, but I was never really able to pinpoint where the difference is or what made their Moodboards more effective. So in this video, I will share with you my insights, what I learned, how to make Moodboards really effective, how to communicate clear ideas with these Moodboards, when to use them, and the different types of mood boards that we use on a daily basis as designers, right? So if you're interested, let's go. So what are mood boards used in general for? So mood boards communicate something abstract to the client. So we use mood boards in order to convey ideas that are not just resolved or explained with words simply, or that we can easily sketch out, because it's often a vague abstract thing that we want to represent. So we use the strength of multiple images together to convey a feeling, an atmosphere, an emotion, a specific style, a direction. So all these things are very vague and abstract, but with this moodboard we are able to convey the message of these things nonetheless, even to a person that has no formal training in aesthetic and design, right? So this is the main purpose of Moodboards. Communicate vague and abstract ideas clearly to somebody else. And if done right, people will have a very clear understanding of the aesthetic approach of the upcoming design phases, right? Everybody will have a similar understanding also, so everybody aligns on what the aesthetic approach will be for the upcoming phases. And we have a ground where we can discuss on, where we can share and exchange ideas about by adding or removing from a mood board. And I would say there are three main types of mood boards that we see like very commonly in industrial design. And I start with the first one, the classic mood board, that is being used broadly in all creative domains, right? In fashion, in movie making, in automotive design, in branding and marketing, interior architecture. Like all these creative fields rely on mood boards. The classic one, right? It inspires a clear emotion, like a mood, right? It is trying to convey a feeling that relates to the user, the end user. That can either be the end user of a product, the driver of a car, the buyer of a car, the people who wear the fashion afterwards, like all these people that are relevant. It has to relate to them. In order to create a mood board, we usually take images from different sources, straight from architecture, from art, from fashion, from nature. So even if we create a product that is not linked or related to architecture or the automotive field, we can still use these images to feed into our mood board, because there are some objects and projects and products and things in the world that have higher emotional value than others, that create a stronger emotional reaction than other objects do. And we use this as our own benefit by taking images of these objects and pictures that create a strong emotional effect and collage them together to convey a specific emotion, even nuanced emotions. And I would say that the classic mood board is often used at an early concept phase to make sure that you and the client are aligned about the direction where this is supposed to go for concepts and the general vibe, right? So there can be a single mood board for every concept that you will be making in the upcoming phases, or you can make several mood boards for different concepts and variations of these concepts. And if you take a look at the example that I made with AI, it's very desaturated colors and one clear accent, which is yellow. Then we have very clear geometries, but there's still depth to it. So even though these are just cubes, there's variation in the arrangement, in the depth of them, and we recognize similar things, but depicted in a differently, more emotive way in other images, right? It's also very cubic, but gives us a completely different impression. Some dynamic lines also cast immediately instill a sensation of dynamic. And then there's a person. And it's not just any person, it's a specific type of person, right? They wear something very specific. We have internal association that we relate to this person. And maybe also, especially in combination with the other images. So we have an Audi here, we have a Mercedes car. This guy looks like somebody upper class. So this creates a clear emotion, even if it's hard to put into words still, right? There's many words I need in order to describe what the image creates as an emotion or a mood for me. And the second type of mood board that I use a lot, especially in industrial design, is the Styleboard. It inspires a clear design language. Just like the mood board, the classic one, it lends from architecture, art, fashion, and nature, but it's much more product focused. So there is no need to show the user that it relates to, because it's much more specific about the product and the product features. Is it more rounded shapes? Is it very simple shapes? Is it very complex shape? What kind of colors are we seeing? What kind of surface transitions or integration of buttons, of certain features within a bigger volume can we deduce? What kind of materials are being used? What kind of lighting? Are there surface patterns, LED screens? So these are really product specific, and it relies much more heavily on detailed shots also of in product images that show transitions of surfaces, textures, and the overall form language. And in order to create a Styleboard that is effective, it must be coherent in its imagery. So it's a problem if you have something very cubic and something very round, if it's not clear that either of these images is just meant for a specific aspect of a product, or that it is meant as a complementation of one main soft form language, if you will. This can be very difficult to create a coherent message while using different references that all are slightly different from each other and therefore not in the exact same style, right? So we have to crop an image, zoom in or out in order to make it as clear as possible, and also pick the right images to communicate most strongly. I would say this is used directly in the concept phase, mostly by designers during the ideation process, right? So they have a reference to work from and to develop concepts of in a certain style. So they can always, if they are coming up with new shapes, look back at the inspiration in the mood board, the Styleboard, and refine the ideas to align them more towards that direction that was communicated and already, let's say, confirmed by the client. So we make sure that the result of our concept phase is something that the client desires and agrees upon, that he wants to have in terms of aesthetic appearance. And a really good Styleboard is a huge help in the ideation process. So in my experience, I did many of these mood boards, Styleboards, but I never used them really. I just made them. So this is now the mood board. I communicated it. And when I ideated, I ignored it more or less, because I had the feeling it doesn't help me out in my development of ideas. I want to be free, right? And maybe there's one point of creating some ideas separate from all other influences. At a certain stage, you want to converge again with the ideas. And then a good mood board can really help you to boil down those details to make sure, all right, I know exactly how to make this surface transition because it's part of the mood board. It's part of the aesthetic that I already communicated and confirmed with the client. And the third type of mood board that I see being used a lot is the CMF board, right? It's also used specifically in industrial design. I think also for other like interior, architecture, maybe fashion potentially. Definitely in automotive, right? And what the CMF board does, it defines materials, colors, and the finishes that will be used on the product. So basically CMF, right? And do you need a CMF board? Not necessarily, because you can also communicate these things all in a render. You have a concept, you apply a material, you give it a surface texture and a finish and the color, and basically you already communicated everything you want in the product, right? And you can easily make variations of that and then you're good to go. And that's also right. But the strength of the CMF board is that it artfully composes a selection of materials and samples that feels more tactile and that elevates the experience, that makes these materials not just a simple coincidence or a simple selection, but it's a specific, well thought through choice by arranging different materials together. So the CMF board is all about the combination of materials and not just a single one material, but how do they work together as a whole? How do they complement each other? And which one takes attention from the others, right? Where is the structure dominating and where's the color dominating? So these things you can all implement in the CMF board. Usually take like real objects, real materials, cut them into pieces, or have other material samples already, or use reference objects that have that material, that surface structure, whatever, applied, put them there. And the way I see CMF boards are being used, it's later down the development phase or the concept phase, where it's about the details, right? Where the concept is more or less already defined, but now we have to think through the exact details, like what kind of texture is supposed to be in the mold, right? What kind of color specifically are we using? What kind of metal is in there? So when we have to really define the materials also that are being used for production and the first samples, prototypes, this is where this is really important. Now let me compare them once more for us to completely understand and also put them in alignment with each other, right? So we have the classic Moodboard, which is mostly used in the early concept phase and which communicates on an emotional level, very user specific. It creates a mood that has to trigger our client, but also the end user of whatever we are designing. And this one is very suitable for lifestyle goods in the domain of industrial design that have already inherently more emotional value, like audio, right? Very emotive. Fashion, like shoes. There you can really create a mood board that communicates a lot. Sports, athleticism, like all these things, right? High emotive value. Then we have the style board, which is used very strongly within the concept phase and is very product specific, right? And for here, I would say less is more. Not too many images, because that just washes out and blurs the style that you are trying to create. And also a big recommendation is not to show the same object as you are designing. So let's say you're designing headphones, then I would recommend not to use a reference of a headphone in your style board, because if you show that to your client, what are you basically communicating? That there is a really nice design of a headphone out there that I want you basically to copy, or that I want you to take things from. I think we should be smarter with our communication, and if there are even headphones like that out there, maybe we can take the aspects that we enjoy about them and find them in other products and use those products instead in our mood board. And the last one is the CMF board, right, which is used in the late concept phase where the concept is already defined. It's very concept specific, where everything is about balance between colors, structures, and it will give you a nice haptic impression and elevates the entire concept like to a more premium experience, right? Because it's very curated. It's not just accidentally, coincidentally. So obviously I presented them now very distinctly from each other and they have a clear point in time, but there's mixing and matching happening all the time, of course. So you can also use CMF materials already in the early stage to hint towards potential material directions it could go from the start. The same with the style board, right? You can already implement style references in the early stage of the mood board or keep them in the CMF board when they help you to communicate a message, right? So you can always mix and match. But I just use this distinction to make clear that there is different times for different types of mood boards if you have a certain goal in mind that you want to communicate. And now I will go over what designers do wrong when creating mood boards, right? And for the classic mood board, what I see a lot of students still do, and mistakes that I did a lot, was also that I just gathered the same image basically in multiple different variations and then I put them on the mood board. Then I felt like, it very clearly communicates the idea, right? It's very coherent, but it's basically just 6 images of the same mood, the same experience. So if there is no nuance difference in these images, then why not just take one of these 6 instead of all 6 of them, right? So every image of the mood board has to add something new to it or make things more specific. And another mistake is ambiguous images, or we show something really premium and something rather cheap. So we create the contradiction within our mood board. So what does that communicate exactly? What are we trying to do? It's a little bit difficult if there's contradicting messages the individual images send to form a overall impression in terms of mood and emotion. What designers do wrong with the style boards is they show the same object as the assignment is, right? What I already mentioned. So if you're designing a car, maybe don't show other cars. If you're designing a mouse, maybe don't use another mouse as a reference because it just devalues your own work, I would say. And again, here ambiguous images, right? So for example, here we have 2 chairs. So what exactly am I trying to say? What is the style that I'm referring to? So we have very thick pillow in both of them. So that would be a similarity, but we have very thick wooden armrest on the one, but very thin or rather thin backrest wooden at the back and like bent pipe. It's contradicting. What exactly am I trying to convey? What is the style that I am trying to communicate to the client? And another issue is the vague overall style, right? By adding too many images, things get vague rather than specific. And lastly, what do designers wrong with the CMF board is they overload it, like just throw in a bunch of materials and it's just becoming too much, right? Usually products don't have more than, I don't know, 3 or 4 materials. Maybe more complex ones obviously do, right? Like cars. Try not to overload your CMF boards. Also be honest there. Only actually show the materials that you intend to use that actually also have a purpose in the final product. Then a mistake would be to have too much of the same thing, right? So if you already have it and it's clear, then that should be sufficient. What you can do is try to add different ways to represent a material. And what we also say is that there's no link to the actual design. So, right, this is very specific to a concept already. And why not link it to the design by showing maybe one part of the actual product in there as well, if it fits in terms of size, right? Or arrange it in such a way that it's understandable. Let's say we have a remote that is vertically arranged, right? It's long. The lower half is maybe wood bamboo based and the upper half is plastic based. And also try to reflect that within your CMF board by putting the wood on the bottom and the plastic at the top. So we can directly transfer this imagery to the actual product and the references is clear where every product material belongs to. All right, this was it. I hope you learned something new about mood boards, how to use them, mistakes to avoid, and how to design them in a way that they clear ideas, that they communicate ideas clearly. Yeah, if you like this, subscribe. If not, maybe next time. See you around.